on that month's edition of WCW Magazine.
Yo everyone, it's Karlifornia here from the nWBros podcast, and I'm having a look at WCW Magazine from June of 1996. Here's a little special here on the nWBros podcast YouTube channel, and there's the giant on the cover looking sexy, bro. And oh yeah, dig it, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, yeah. I love how they used to have like pictures of people that a lot of people probably would ruin the magazine. A lot of kids would be cutting the pictures out, putting it on the wall with blue tack, and you know, that's why these WCW magazines seem really difficult to come by, because you know, that's what you do when you're a kid. You get these magazines to enrich the experience of being a professional wrestling fan. You're checking WCWWrestling.com. You know, you're enriching your experience. You're going in the chat rooms on IRC chat, etc. But you know, I was flicking through this magazine, and I thought, you know, there was quite a lot of fun little articles and little tidbits. I liked the WCW update that we're looking at right here, especially the part with Kimberly talking about how she's with the Booty Man. And she said, I walked into the gym one day and saw the most gorgeous, svelte, round, hard, masculine booty I've ever seen in my life. He left me speechless, and I knew I just had to get my hands on him. I don't think that's a direct quote, let's be honest with you. But some of this other stuff's pretty cool. Sting was on a TV show, and he was also, you know, they're a part of the festivities for WCW Motorsports. I'll keep talking about the previous page as it flicks through some of these recaps from WCW Uncensored, but you know, on the previous page they were talking about the World Wrestling Peace Festival that Antonio Inoki was putting on in Los Angeles in June. But yeah, you know, they had rankings there, they had a little listing of the wrestlers' upcoming birthdays, and the great thing about this is that you can press pause at any time, put that motherfucker to full screen, and you can have a read of that June edition of WCW Magazine. I'm going to be doing this every single month, so we're about to get to July, which will be posted next week, and then I'll be going through July's edition of WCW Magazine in, of course, 1996. But again, a lot of the highlights from Uncensored, and you know, a recap being written probably by Ross Foreman, who was, you know, one of the main writers for WCW Magazine. And for those playing at home, Colin Bowman was the guy that was the publication director and editor of the magazine. He actually started this on his own and was like, you know, paid by WCW as like an outside entity before they ended up taking it in-house by 1999. Crazy to think that at that pay-per-view the Road Warriors were there. Like, imagine the Road Warriors were around when the Outsiders show up. I mean, wouldn't that be interesting? Then you've got the Alliance to End Hulkamania here. I mean, they even had Zeus, dude. Like, Zeus was a part of this as well. And I totally forgot Luger was trying to help end Hulkamania as well. But Savage and Hogan, they managed to get the win in the end, didn't they? So following that, we've got Hello Nancy. It's a woman. She's got a little, you know, little article here about herself. But a lot of these articles, they're like about, like, they're in character. Like the writers just talking about the storylines and pushing the storylines. So there's not a lot of like shoot kind of articles in WCW Magazine at this point. But we'll find out if that changes as time moves on, as we're kind of moving into like the realism in professional wrestling. You know, that's kind of the way that WCW at the time was headed. I will say Bobby's article was quite entertaining to read. You know, he spends most of the article just taking the piss out of everyone. He's making fun of Medusa. He's making fun of other people from the magazine that are writing their own columns. But, you know, as it wears on, like, I start to think to myself, you know, is Bobby really sitting there writing an article? You know, because Medusa does one later. Lord Steven Regal has his own column as well. I'm like, do they have the actual people actually write these articles? If anyone out there knows, please let me know. And again, more focus on some of these, you know, kind of mid-card guys. Hugh Morris getting himself a nice little article here. Just you find out a little bit about his past, but most of it is, once again, in character, kayfabe, etc. Love the picture there of Hugh. You know, I would say he's an unsung hero of WCW. I just wish when I tried to get him on my podcast that he would have said yes. I would really like to have talked to him, you know. But anyway, nonetheless, here's the Lord Steven Regal article. This was a little bit interesting because, you know, he was talking about like his past and all that stuff, and also having like a little bit of a tiff with Colin Bowman over having his column taken away from him, and now the column's been reinstated. So interesting stuff there. And of course the live event calendar. Now you really get to have a look at WCW, right? You're having a look here and look at all the different shows they do. Main event, Pro, Worldwide, Saturday Night, Nitro. I know a lot of it's taped ahead of time. And there's the Giant looking like the Incredible Hulk. But you don't realize at the time that they had like 5 shows airing. I know Pro, Main Event, and Worldwide were like the syndicated shows. But, you know, sign of the times. You know, I think maybe WCW Prime had stopped, but let's move forward here. In the hot seat, the Giant has an article written where he was interviewed. And some of the things that I found kind of interesting was him talking about what it was like being younger and all that. But, you know, once again, you know, I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, okay, no, he's just in character. Like, I would love to, you know, I'd love to know more about, you know, the big guy. You know, they talk about it like he used to be a basketball player and all that stuff. And look at that picture of him. Look at that face of him. It's the kind of face you pull when you're in the middle of sex with Kimberly Page. Anyway, yeah, so, you know, he talked about, like, his past in basketball, which I thought was interesting, but then he talks about, you know, being discovered by the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, and, you know, then he starts talking shit about Hogan, but nonetheless, right at the end, he has a little bit of a, you know, word association with all of these people. Their names been thrown at him. And he thought that Medusa could be the next Mrs. Giant. Very interesting. Very interesting. And speaking of Medusa, Kick, Wrestle, and Roll with Medusa. Little article where she talks about her time in pro wrestling. She talks about how she threw the title in the trash and people keep sending her letters asking her why she did that. But, you know, again, I think to myself, geez, did these people actually sit there and write this? And we've got 2 pages here of the hotline buzz. That's 1-900-909-9900. And look at the fucking rude head of Mark Madden there. Like, yeah, there's a reason why they made you work for WCW.com, bro. I don't mean to be too mean, but speaking of mean, there's Mean Gene. And we all know that he had the hotline. That was his baby, and he made all the money from the hotline. I just wish that there was a recording out there of the hotline so I could at least hear what it sounded like. And, you know, did Gene talk slower to get more money out of the kid? You know, that's the old joke in The Simpsons. So moving forward here into the magazine, and I'm sorry if the music's getting annoying, but Disco Inferno has his own article here. 2 pages. 2 pages, mate. And there's so many people out there right now that fucking shit on Disco so much. Back in the day, no one ever said shit about it. he goes out there now and gives an opinion on wrestling. I don't agree with all of his things that he says. I don't agree with everything. But he's not a fucking idiot, and there's no need to, like, talk shit about him. Anyway, the next article I found pretty interesting because, they're talking about who the future of WCW and wrestling is. And they're talking about Benoit. They're talking about Mr. JL, which is Jerry Lynn there in the mask. Dean Malenko, The Giant, Das Wunderkind Alex Veit, and Conan, which they're still spelling incorrectly here and on television. They also mentioned Shinjiro Otani, but I don't think he's actually a part of the list. But it gets interesting on this page here because they're talking about Eddie Guerrero. And then they start mentioning Public Enemy. And then they mention Men at Work, which is like Canyon and... I can't even remember who the other guy was. Was it Mark Starr? Yeah, Men at Work with the fucking, like, hard hats. Get out of here. Like, Canyon's awesome, but... I don't know about that gimmick. Alex Wright gets a quote in here, and he actually mentions Sabu and Devon Storm, who will be later known as Crowbar. But yeah, another little interesting article. Obviously, Harlem Heat get a shout out as well. And Tony Schiavone with Talking Point. Again, just wondering, did Tony sit there on a computer and type out an article? Or was this all someone else? I mean, I would imagine he probably has a lot of time during the week, and it's only once a month that he'd need to write something, I suppose. I don't think it'd be too much to ask for, but I would hate to sit there and write an article in character. Get out of town, bro. Get the fuck out of here. Now, this is a nice little article on Teddy Long. Again, they're using the magazine as an opportunity to give some limelight to some people. And, they're talking about Teddy Long here and how he's managing Craig Pittman and jumping Joey Maggs. And I know as time wears on, he ends up managing hard work Bobby Walker. He ends up managing... what's the guy's name? No, I'm not going to remember it. Jim Powers. There we go. He ends up, a lot of them didn't win a lot of matches, I'll be honest with you. But a nice little article there. And then we're getting towards the tail end here of the June edition of WCW Magazine. And there's an expert assessment on Dirty Dick Slater. He's a former tag team champion with Bunkhouse Buck. And some kind words written by Colonel Robert Parker, The American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, Larry Zbyszko, and Jimmy Hart. Again, they are giving time and effort to hype up, one of the guys. I mean, I wouldn't even call Dick Slater at that point a mid-card guy because he was teaming with Mike Enos in Rough and Ready and, he wasn't doing a whole lot. So they're even giving the lower mid-card guys a bit of a blur. But the final page here, Diamond Dallas Page gets an article where they're talking, again, more kayfabe shit about his Rags to Riches storyline in WCW. And here we are, the second last page, I guess it's just before the back cover. And it's a nice little photo shoot there with Meng and Barbarian, the Faces of Fear, doing a little photo shoot there. I would say they're probably around the Disney MGM studios for that one. And of course, the back page, Mean Gene there with they're hyping the Great American Bash. And it's coming soon on June 16th. So thank you for checking out this episode of WCW Magazine.